Let me introduce you to this massive Russian nuclear submarine, the Kursk, designed primarily to destroy enemy aircraft carriers. It entered service in 1994, but wasn't used much until '99 because Russia was struggling financially. Its first operations involved monitoring NATO ships in the Mediterranean during the Yugoslav wars. But what matters to us is what happened on August 12, 2000. The Kursk leaves its base with 118 crew members to conduct torpedo targeting exercises in the Barents Sea. Up there, north of Russia, where it must be incredibly cold, well, when they arrive at the agreed location at 11:30, it submerges just enough so that with the periscope they can clearly see the trajectory of their torpedoes and fire. Boom, the first shot is perfectly launched. Oh really? Well come on, let's do it again, fire. But at that moment something goes wrong and boom, a massive explosion in the weapons area. It seems the torpedo in the bow was poorly maintained and already damaged before launch. But don't worry, these beastly submarines are prepared for such mishaps. The thing is, the gunners left the launcher's back cover open, and the shockwave, instead of going outwards, went inwards into the ship. This leaves the other 7 torpedoes they had kept in storage there completely useless, and 2 minutes later, another boom. The 7 explode at once, and this explosion directly blows open a good part of the hull, so water starts pouring in as if there were no tomorrow. But wait, this isn't the first time something like this has happened to the Russians, because before the Kursk, 4 other nuclear-powered submarines had similar accidents, and thanks to being divided into sections, they were able to seal off the compartments and perform an emergency evacuation, thus saving the crew or what was left of them. The thing is, the explosions on the Kursk were so savage and chain-reacting there was no time to prepare that option. So the vessel, in a matter of seconds, gained negative buoyancy and began to sink. It sank uncontrollably, slowly but surely, until it finally hit rock bottom at about 108 meters deep. And, in case you didn't know, beyond 100 meters, rescue operations are very, very difficult. And what's more, at that time. Alright, now we need to figure out how many people got trapped down there. Look, with the first explosion, almost certainly those near the forward torpedo section perished. But then the second one, wow, it wiped out nearly everyone else. Only those working on the stern, by the reactor area, managed to survive. That is 23 sailors, who quickly, with great difficulty and in complete darkness, took refuge in the very last compartment. One of them, at that moment, took a paper and a pen and wrote the following 2 hours after the explosion. All the crew members from compartments 6, 7, and 8 moved to the 9th. There are 23 people here. We made this decision as a consequence of the accident. None of us can reach the surface. I'm writing this blindly. 2 more hours passed, and he wrote this other note. It's too dark to write here. I'm trying blindly. It seems we don't have much of a chance. 10 or 20%. I hope that at least someone reads this. Here's a list of the personnel in the compartments. We are in the 9th and will try to get out. Hello everyone. Don't despair. Meanwhile, the Russian army was perplexed by the loss of communication with the vessel, but they believed it was nothing more than that. Until 12 hours later, they finally realized something has happened and raised the alarm. Guys, girls, the rescue operation begins. With awful lag, mind you, but hey, it's something. Do you think they'll get the survivors out alive, or will it be a total disaster? Well, you're about to be shocked by one of the greatest acts of incompetence by authorities ever, though this is a hint. When Russia announced that the Kursk, one of its most advanced nuclear-powered submarines, had just sunk, countries worldwide quickly offered to lend a hand. The media also provided almost live coverage of every development in the rescue preparations, knowing that the public absolutely loves these cases of people trapped with a ticking clock. But things proceeded quite calmly, though. The Russian Navy, 3 days later, located the submarine, pause, and attempted a couple of approaches, pause, with a submersible rescue vessel, pause, but the battery was draining incredibly fast, pause, and they were running into technical difficulties constantly. Well, they did absolutely nothing at all. Keep in mind that until then, the Russian government had rejected all offers of international aid because they believed that others only wanted to exploit the situation to spy. But seeing that they couldn't handle it alone, they finally accepted a helping hand. But by then, 3 days had already passed, man. That's too much. So, Norway, the United States, and the United Kingdom sent their ships with expert divers. But Russia changed its mind again, saying they shouldn't approach within 22 kilometers of the accident because they kept insisting they only wanted to spy. Meanwhile, the Russian government met with the families and told them not to worry, that they were surely alive because the submarine was prepared for such situations and that inside they could survive for about 6 days. However, the Russian government, until the 8th day, did not allow a Norwegian ship to get close. As soon as it arrived, they sent down a team of divers specialized in these very tricky operations. And while trying to secure the hatch to open it so that the pressure change would not cause a rupture, they realized that the interior was flooded. Oh, this is a bad sign. In any case, there was still hope that a group of survivors had sealed themselves inside the tail section, and that part was still dry. So they went outside the submarine to check the pressure, to see if any compartment wasn't yet flooded with water. And the result was, I'm sorry, but no. Even the stern section was already filled with water. Then, they managed to open one of the hatches of this last compartment, inserted a camera, and there they could see how the 23 crew members, who had initially survived, were dead. And that was it. The rescue operation was obviously declared over at that moment. Recent studies have determined that the 23 survivors could only last alive for about 3 to 8 hours trapped there, dying either from hypothermia or asphyxiation by toxic gases. So, with the incredible speed the authorities showed, they had zero opportunities. Although it must also be said that the situation was almost impossible, because between finding the submarine and bringing the rescue ship and so on, they would only have had time if they had acted in the very first minute. Well, now that there was no such rush, the international expedition left, and the Russians stayed, who, together with a Dutch company, cut off the front part of the submarine with the utmost possible care, because there were still 15 loaded torpedoes left, and who knew how damaged they might have been. And then, with the help of 2 crane ships, a full 14 months later, they finally managed to tow the remaining sections of the submarine back to the port of Rolas, Yakovo. Alright, so what I've just told you is the official version of this whole incident, but some experts don't believe it and say that in reality, the Kursk submarine was actually spying on another American submarine passing through the area, and accidentally, boom, it hit it. I mean, they collided. But come on, such a huge impact would also have had to take out the USS Memphis, which was indeed in the area on the day of the accident, and nothing happened to it. The Russian government, 10 months after the incident, attempted to close the debate by telling news organizations that they had found another note from one of the sailors in the rear which stated that the explosion they had was caused by one of their faulty torpedoes. However, they never showed this note, and it is not known exactly what the contents were. If you're wondering, to this very day, parts of the original submarine are displayed in various museums and iconic squares across Russian cities to commemorate the 118 sailors who tragically lost their lives. And you won't believe this, because no one was brought to trial or fined, neither for the accident nor for the disastrous response. So the moral is, if you ever go in a submarine and it sinks, bureaucracy and diplomacy will surely be what kills you. See ya, local pizzas.